Hey, Richard Bryce here, Tennis Hacker. In this video, I want to give you 4 things that you can do in your next match to make less unforced errors. So hopefully you find the video helpful. If you do, it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, it's always appreciated if you could do that as well. Now, the next time you play a match, you won't be able to think about all 4 of these different things. Instead, what I'm going to do is give you 4 options, and you need to choose the one that's the most appropriate for you and focus on that. Now, I'm going to go through them in terms of easiest through to the hardest to implement. And the easiest thing to implement is focusing on your shot selection. I know that doesn't sound very sexy, but a very large percentage of unforced errors come from players just going for a completely inappropriate shot. A shot that they don't have the ability to execute on a consistent basis, or just a shot that was completely unrealistic and low percentage in a particular situation. Now, there can be a few different reasons this happens. One of the big ones is, you see players do something on TV, so they get a short forehand or they get a high forehand, and professional tennis players put that away. So you get that in a match and you think that you should be able to do that because it seems like an easy shot. And you might also have watched different YouTube videos that talk about crushing forehands for winners and things like that. And it creates slightly unreasonable expectations. So the most simple thing that you can do is kind of play within your means. It doesn't mean being really tentative. What it means is play high percentage tennis. Instead of trying to crush things for a winner, hit cross court, hit to big targets, hit the ball deep. That's generally the way to win at most levels of the game. The next thing that you could focus on to reduce unforced errors in your next match is going to be equally as unsexy as the last one I've just given you, and it's going to be focusing on your recovery. A lot of players, kind of at the 4.0 level and below, they hit their shot, they tend to watch where their shot's going, and there's a big delay before they actually start recovering and getting set up or into position ready to receive their next shot. So simply by focusing on your recovery, and the way that I recommend you do it is as you're hitting your stroke, before you even lift your head to look where the ball's going, you start the recovery. So, if you're hitting a pivot step, you start your recovery, so you pivot off that outside leg and start your recovery before you even look where the ball's going. If I'm hitting an open stance forehand again, I would hit my shot and start my recovery before I've even looked where the ball's going. And that's something you can really train yourself to do. And then it's just a case of recovering into the right position, which is splitting the difference between your 2 opponents' best shots. So you know roughly where you're going to aim your shot. So you should know what position you need to recover to. So you just have to start doing that as quickly as you can. And just by focusing on that within your next match, it's going to give you a lot of time on your next shot, which is going to reduce unforced errors. The third thing that you can work on to reduce unforced errors in your next match really follows on from the second thing, because it's going to be focusing kind of on your preparation, on reading the ball as quickly as you can so that you can move and set up in an optimal position. Because a lot of unforced errors happen simply because players aren't set up in the right position, and then that leads to various different technical issues. So by focusing on the preparation, you can address a lot of the things that normally get put down to technique. It's an easy thing to focus on, but it's actually a slightly harder thing to implement, because one of the biggest limitations for most players is how quickly and effectively they can read the flight of the ball. So I'm actually going to talk a little bit about how you can address that towards the end of the video. But the third thing to focus on is setting up in the right position. You've got to try and read their ball, but respect the quality of their shot. If they hit a good shot, you need to respect it. Maybe you might need to move back a little bit. And it actually feeds into the first thing this way, because setting up in the right position is heavily related to choosing the right shot and having good shot selection. So really all 3 of these pieces work together. The fourth thing that you can do to reduce unforced errors in your next match is really focus on watching the ball through to contact. When we watch the ball through to contact, we're just more accurate with the movements that we make, and it generally allows us to control the angle of the racket face more effectively. So by focusing on watching the ball through to contact, it can help you to cut unforced errors. The problem is, although it's a simple thing to work on, just like with reading the flight of the ball, it can actually be really difficult for a lot of people. And potentially you've tried it. You might have tried to focus on watching the ball through to contact, or you might already be trying to focus on preparing as soon as you can and setting up in good positions. but realistically they both have physical requirements. Your visual system needs to be functioning at a really high level for you to be able to read the flight of the ball. It also needs to be functioning at a really high level for you to be able to track the ball through to contact. There's also a coordination requirement for tracking the ball through to contact. And that's why I say these two elements are really important to focus on, or can be really important to focus on, but they're a little bit harder to implement than the shot selection or the recovery that don't rely on skill. You just make the decision, okay, I'm going to focus on shot selection, or I'm going to focus on doing my recovery. But if you'd like to learn how to improve your skill, because you can actually train your visual system so that you can read the flight of the ball more effectively, you can train it so that you can track the ball more effectively through to contact, I've got a class that I've created. It's a free class that's going to teach you how you can do that with brain-based training. So I'll place a link to that class in the description so that you can check that out if you're interested. But hopefully what I've explained in this video makes sense. I haven't listed off any tweaks and changes that you can make to your technique. Yes, I recommend that over time you try and improve your technique as much as you can, but in terms of big ticket things for improving consistency in your next match, you can't be thinking about completely changing your technique. It just doesn't work like that. You have to practice and work on technique over a prolonged period of time, develop new habits, and then it works in matches. So that's something that you should be doing on an ongoing basis. Things to actually think about in the match are more simple things like I've talked about here. Okay, hopefully that's been useful for you. If it was, really good if you can give me a thumbs up. Any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section. Otherwise, I will catch you next time.